about how your battle with kidney cancer a while ago transformed you into e-patient Dave.
Today I know that the word e-patient is about empowered, engaged, equipped, enabled, and obviously the e-electronic. At the time, when I got diagnosed in early 2007, I'd never heard of it, but that's just the way I naturally was. Whether I was shopping for a car or anything, I just always did what I could to understand things myself and then ask questions of the professionals. So when I was diagnosed, it turns out my median survival was 24 weeks. I mean, I was seriously sick. I had metastases everywhere from my skull to my femur. And I found out through a patient community about high dosage interleukin-2, which is a drug that it turns out most patients never hear about. And now my hospital has it, so they were steering me that way. But the first place I ever heard about it was the patient community. They said it usually doesn't work, but when it does, about half the time it's complete and permanent. And here I am today, 6 years later. And after the disease was over, my doctor invited me to learn about the e-patient movement. He was one of the pioneers in it starting in the 90s. One thing led to another. In 2009, I had been studying the e-patient movement, and I wrote a blog post about my medical record. It ended up on the front page of the Boston Globe, and next thing I knew, I was being invited to policy meetings.
And how have you used your experience to help empower patients around the world?
What I know, my whole approach, is not to complain about the way things are, but to point out things that have changed, things that are newly possible that people don't realize. Because that way you can talk about change without attacking the way people currently view things. All you're doing is pointing to something new. I just try to leave people with a sense that things are newly possible that were not possible before.
And what are some of these things that you have picked up on?
Well, for instance, the fact that information now, 20 years ago, before the internet, the only way to get good, reliable medical information was by going to, the temple, the cathedral, the medical institution. And certainly that's where I went when I was sick. None of this negates the value of the institution. But in addition to that, there's all kinds of information that patients talk about and obscure things that no clinician would have time to research that patients can aggregate. I mean, the average primary physician in America has about 2,000 patients. There's 10 to 11,000 condition codes. And in contrast to that, my kidney cancer patient community has one disease where they go deep and wide. And the hallmark of what we call participatory medicine is that, when I find something, I don't bring it to my doctor and say, hey, stupid, why didn't you tell me about this? I say, hey, I found this, what do you think?
And I also noticed that on the back of your suit jacket, you have a painting by Regina Holiday. Can you tell me the story behind that?
Regina is this amazing force of nature who understands storytelling, and that she observed after her husband's death, also of kidney cancer, that lots of people she talked to were walking around with medical stories and nobody could see them. So she started painting on the back of people's jackets, painting their stories, and there are over 200 of them now. In her case, it's a really good example of what I just talked about a minute ago, because her husband, it's ironic. I had insurance but no symptoms, and the moment I got diagnosed, I was in treatment. Her husband had symptoms, but because they didn't have insurance, they got no treatment. Then when he finally did, they bounced to 3 bad hospitals in a row, and they were just not getting current treatment. And one day, at the toy store where she worked, a customer of hers said, how are you doing? She said, terrible, my husband's dying of kidney cancer. And her friend said, oh, kidney cancer, I know a guy on Twitter. That was me. 36 hours later, she was talking to my oncologist on the phone. Now, what my oncologist had to say was sometimes it's too late, which is sad, but clearly, see, this is the point, access to that valuable information came through Twitter, not through the establishment. In fact, they'd gone to the establishment and had failed. So the jacket portrays the phone call where she and I met that night on the phone. The coils of the phone cord reminded her of the E in E-Patient Dave. I want to make clear also, nothing that I talk about is anti-physician. I am alive because of great physicians. I had an essay in the British Medical Journal in April where my oncologist allowed himself to be quoted saying that in my case, he said, I have no doubt that the medicine killed your tumors, but you were really sick. And I don't know if you could have tolerated enough medicine if you hadn't been so prepared to deal with the side effects. And all of that preparation came from my patient community because there's nothing in the literature.
Well, it's great to have you here, and thank you
Thanks.
so much for sitting down with us and speaking.
Thank you. Thank you.